learning process and not to live in a shell of static, safe mediocrity. These wise words by Josh Watson rightly elucidated the motive behind the two-day tax conclave 2023. It puts the spotlight on ardor and diligence, the two key features which takes an individual from mediocrity to excellence. And these two qualities are an attestation that the members of All Gujarat Federation of Tax Consultants and Income Tax Bar Association firmly credence in building a culture of continual learning. Each one present here will vouch for, develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow. A very good morning to one and all present here. I, Sneha Mehrotra, take this privilege to warmly welcome you all to day 2 of the two-day tax conclave 2023. Begin with the session. I request each one of you to either put your cell phones either on the silent mode or switch it off. Tax Conclave 2023, and the first session will be addressed by Senior Advocate V. Raghuraman sir on Controversies and Judgements under the GST Act. I request C.A. Shivam Voucher sir and Advocate Jignesh Bhagat sir to escort our esteemed dignity onto the dais. Senior Advocate V. Raghuraman sir, along with other dignitaries, Advocate Ramesh Kachrani, Advocate Shirish Visnagri, Advocate Tejas Shah, C.A. Sanjay Patel, Advocate Harnish Mode, Hetal Shah, we welcome one and all onto the dais. Let me attempt to introduce our esteemed sir today, a designated senior advocate, a chartered accountant, cost accountant, and company secretary with an illustrious academic record is what sums up sir's academic excellence. His area of specialization includes taxation, FEMA, and other elite subjects. He has been practicing for over 3 decades before the Supreme Court, High Court, and the tribunals. He has addressed large number of seminars and published papers in several magazines. He has authored books too. Sir, I humbly request you to come forward and enlighten us. I welcome you, sir. Before that, I would just like all the members sitting on the dais to felicitate sir. I would request Advocate Jignesh Bhagat sir to felicitate sir with a book. I now request Shivam Bhausar sir to felicitate sir with a memento. Thank you, sir. So the stage is all yours. We welcome you to grace the podium. A loud round of applause for V. Raghuraman sir.
It's a matter of great pride and pleasure for me to be present. And I thank the organizers for thinking it fit to invite me. I also thank the esteemed person who introduced me.
Thank you, sir.
It's always, I was a little surprised about only one thing. I thought I will come to Gujarat with this coat. But found very few people wearing this coat. Controversies and judgments in GST. If I were to start speaking about them, it will take me one day. I will restrict myself only to some topics which will be of future interest, because whatever I have addressed, I remember the last 4 years or 5 years in other places and in Ahmedabad. You would find many of them as judgments today. Some favorable, some against. Let us look at some of the seminal issues in goods and services tax, or what they call as good and simple tax. It's for you to figure out whether it is as easy and simple as it seems to be. Because one of the major roadblocks in GST has been the implementation of GST. It has nothing to do with the law. And the lack of training among the state officers. I think the major controversy is not the law, but the lack of training for the state officers. They are used to a system of assessment in sales tax. The central officers are used to a system of adjudication. So you have the assessees caught between assessments and adjudications, unable to fathom who is going to do what. And this aspect has seldom been understood by the court. So unfortunate that jurisdiction of officers, we have seen only adverse decision by the courts. You can't, as a matter of principle, have two people doing assessments over the same assessee. It's a matter of principle. There is something in the European Court of Justice decisions, fundamental law of certainty, rule of law. One of the subsects of the rule of law is law of certainty. Certainty means I should know what the law is and who is going to do assessment. Now, both of these are lacking in GST. Neither do I know what the law is, nor do I know who is going to do my assessments. One day the state officer will come, one day the central officer will come, one day Director General from somewhere he will come, and that too not in state of Gujarat, from any other state he will issue notice. In addition to Enforcement Directorate. So we should have clear-cut mechanism, and that is why I think Section 6 of the GST was actually formulated. Section 6 is for cross-empowerment, where the GST Council will decide whom to invest with what powers. If you see carefully and read the GST minutes, you would have come to know that they could not come to a consensus. I don't know how many of you have read the GST minutes. They could not come to a consensus on whom to give powers to do assessments. Therefore, one of the finance ministers said, at least for refunds you please give cross-empowerment. Because refunds on exports are being held up. Therefore, they passed a resolution saying, we will hold up the other things, but as far as refunds are concerned, we will cross-empower. So, cross-empowerment today is only for refunds, not for other things. Unfortunately, they issued a circular. You see, and the the earlier law and this law are completely different. Earlier in excise, the central board could issue circulars for administration of law. Today the law is different. GST Council recommends an action, you have to act on that recommendation. You cannot issue a circular behind the back. That is impermissible. In fact, on that ground, I had one of the circulars on this toll, annuity, struck down by the Karnataka High Court. They struck down the circular, saying that you cannot issue a circular when the government itself is not issuing a notification based on GST Council recommendations. So please understand, my friends, that circular is not the be-all and end-all of your administration. Please don't read the law starting from circular. So the first and biggest controversy is cross-empowerment, because I am finding cross notices now. Empower means cross notices. State government will issue for 1 year, central government for another year. Then from Delhi, suddenly you will get one DGGI, as they call it, DGGI, issuing notices. DGGSTI it was, now it is DGGI, and so many nomenclatures which are there, which is a cause of concern for all of us. And the first and major controversy is that unfortunately the courts have not looked at jurisdiction in the way they should have looked at it. And we are expecting some more action on this when more and more petitions are filed. The second aspect of GST law which disturbs me is this. Can any law in GST be passed to regulate exports? Because today, all said and done, especially today, this country needs exports. We have to finance our oil imports, which is so high. Can a GST law have provisions for exports? I am going to the fundamentals. Can you have? Please look at the Constitution. I argued this matter and it has been admitted for final hearing in Karnataka High Court, as well as in other high courts. Issue is this. The Constitution allows you to tax supply of goods or services or both. Goods or services or both. Now when it comes to interstate transactions, that is transactions in the course of interstate trade or commerce, that is the terminology used. Supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce. 269A would tell you import is also considered, that is, supplies in the course of import are also considered as supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce. But the Constitution does not talk of exports. It doesn't say supplies in the course or of exports or supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce. Nowhere it has been said. So the jurisdiction to impose any tax, to impose any regulatory framework is restricted only to transactions between two states, transactions in the course of import, not in the course of export. This was one of the arguments that I took before the court. In what? I have not yet divulged this information because it came to me only yesterday. It was pronounced. Only yesterday it was pronounced. I had challenged the provisions of 89C4, 89.4C of the rules. What is this 89.4C of the CGST rules? Just like your 80 HHC, HHE workings, in GST also we have this rules which say input tax credit refund you can take proportionate to exports. Export turnover by total turnover into what is your net input tax credit. I think most of you must be aware of this 89.4C. Now, just after COVID came, on 23rd March, they amended the rule to say, in calculating this turnover of exports, it will be export turnover during the quarter or as whatever tax period, or 1.5 times the domestic turnover, whichever is less. 1.5 times domestic turnover or exports, whichever is less. So if you have 60 rupee export and 40 rupees domestic turnover, no problem. No problem. 60 rupees export, 60 rupees, 1.5 times domestic turnover also 60, no problem. Come to a situation where you have 100 rupees export and 0 rupee domestic. What happens? How much refund you get? Whoever makes this formula, if I see him, Sashtang. How to make sure that exporters are worse off than before is the only objective of some of the officers. So I gave this illustration to the court and said, I export more, I get less refund. In the course of this challenge, I said the amendment to the rules adding 1.5 is arbitrary and therefore unconstitutional. Manifest arbitrary principle, which all of you know in Shaira Banu's case, it was explained beautifully by Justice Rohinton Nariman. Now, yesterday or sometime, I don't know, the order has been pronounced. I had also done this constitutional challenge that you cannot have any provision in the GST law which will regulate exports. Now I am told that the petition, I was not there, I had some matters in the Supreme Court, so I was not physically present. I was told that the petition has been partly allowed, which means, I don't know, probably 89.4C has been struck down or constitutional, whatever I have said has been accepted. Which part has been accepted or not, I don't know. So we have to wait for the text of the decision to actually find out what has happened, because then in that case it will become a landmark decision. And will surely go all the way to the Supreme Court, because the revenue is not going to leave this. But the fundamental issue that I am telling and putting before you is simply this. You cannot have a provision which whittles down the refund on exports. Because the section itself in section 16 of the GST Act doesn't talk of whittling down exports at all. So that can't be done. It is impermissible. In fact, we go to the other issue which will come out of this. Now, if something is not export of services, can you tax it? Export of services or export of goods has certain conditions in the GST Act. That recipient should be outside India, the person who is supplying services should be in India, etc., etc. One of the conditions, he should realize the amounts in foreign exchange. These kind of conditions are there. Now, let us assume I have exported certain services, but I receive the money in Indian rupees, not in foreign exchange. So, as per the export of service rules, which is there in the GST Act 2(6), it is not exports. Can you bring it to tax is the issue. Can you tax exports because it is not realized in foreign exchange? The answer, in my opinion, is no. You may not give them any incentives. You may not give a refund of input tax credit. You may not give a refund of tax paid on exports. But you cannot bring it to tax as a local transaction because the consumption of that service or goods is outside India. After all, GST has been told to be a destination-based consumption tax. And the principle of GST, as has been clarified even by the board, is you can export services, you can export goods, but you cannot export taxes. That is the principle. So once you prove that it is exported, the question of bringing it to tax in India doesn't arise, even if you don't satisfy the conditions in the law. Maximum is you lose benefits, you may not get the benefits, but that cannot make the transaction taxable. Point 3. Point 4. Let us come to one of the hotly contested issues in GST is whether intermediates can be brought to tax. When I say intermediate, agents, brokers. Can you bring them to tax, especially if they are brokers or who are earning foreign exchange? Today the law is that an intermediate is deemed to be, the place of supply is deemed to be India. 13(8) of the GST Act will say that place of supply for intermediates is in India. I'll give you an example. Let us say that I am exporting software services. I supply it to UK. I receive foreign exchange. 13(2) says place of supply is recipient of services, called the B2B principle, business to business. Since the recipient is outside India, it becomes, the place of supply becomes outside India. Take an intermediate's case, a person who is a broker, agent. He also does the same thing. He will be giving services to a foreign principal, marketing goods in India, he gets a commission. By a statutory fiction in 13(8), you have fixed the place in India, though the services are consumed outside India. Please understand, when I say consumed outside India, it means by the person who pays for it. The department and the government have continuously erred in interpreting this. They say you are rendering services to the person in India. No. When I market a foreign principal's goods to somebody in India, I am not doing any service to this Indian person. I am doing service to the foreign person because from him only I get the commission. The Indian person doesn't pay me anything. If at all I have to recover anything from him, I have to go under IBC. And that too, if you see the law in IBC today, it's impossible to recover. IBC law has become a heaven for defaulters. I am very sure that this law is going to be amended shortly. The way it is working, it has become very easy for you to float company, close company, float another company. Operational creditors are so worse off. You just see the amount of operational creditors who don't get their monies paid at all. Financial creditors, something they will get. And in fact, the recent judgment of the Supreme Court in Noida's case, I don't know if you are aware of this. If you have read this Noida's case, please read it. They say that the governmental authority which leases land, yes sir, you are aware of it, which leases land to the lessee, is not a financial creditor but an operational creditor. It is going to be death knell for governmental authorities by the time they realize that they are operational creditors. You will see amendments coming to the IBC law. Anyway, that's a different topic which somebody else will discuss probably in future in your. But what I am coming to is this. An intermediate is no different from any other exporter of services. Why have you singled him out and put him in 13(8) and made place of supply in India? This is not that it is new in GST. It was there in service tax also. In 2014, they amended the rules to make him taxable. Please understand a very important principle in Indian taxation law. If you have any grievance and you approach the government, they will make you worse off than the problem. And nobody has realized it till now. I cannot understand the mindset of assessees and some professionals. For everything they will go to the government. Classic case, 1986, MODVAT was introduced. What happened? Refrigerator industry had input tax credit building up. Because the input tax credit was more than output tax payable. Refrigerator. This was the classic case in 86. 1 year, they had lot of input tax credit, very less output tax payment. Because of the tax structure. So they represented, this is our, always we say we'll go for representation. We'll go for representation. So they represented to the government. We have difficulty. Input tax rates are more than output tax. So reduce the input tax rates. Government said your problem is accumulated credit. We'll increase the output tax. This has going on from 86 in this country. And unfortunately, even now we don't realize that when you go to government, you will be worse off. So intermediary, you go represent, what they will do? Nothing they will do. If possible, they'll try to raise the rate from 18 to 28. Maximum they can do, they will do. So intermediary, challenge to intermediary. If you look at the Gujarat High Court decision in material recycling case, unfortunately, without analyzing all these aspects, they said 13(8) is constitutional. So as far as your state is concerned, whatever I am telling, as of today, no use. But in Bombay High Court, there was a divergence of opinion. One judge said, yes, it is unconstitutional. One judge said, no, it is constitutional. Difference of opinion referred to third bench. In other high courts, for example, Karnataka High Court, where I have argued the matter, it has been admitted and stay given. Stay has been given because of the very important questions of law that is involved in the issue. So that is one very hot topic which is there. One of the favorite topics for youngsters and not so favorite topics for the elderly people like me and more than me, online gaming. This online gaming is an issue. I don't know how different it is from offline gaming. Please tell me, how different is online gaming and offline gaming different? Why do you have to view it differently? You pay, 4 people get together, they'll play rummy on the table. Otherwise, you play rummy with the computer. What difference it makes? There also is on with the machine. In fact, the machine is more intelligent than most of us. Why? I'll tell you why. If 4 of us are sitting and playing rummy, let us assume, 4 people's intelligence or stupidity, as the case may be. When you take the computer fellow, that fellow has the intelligence of this entire hall or more. Because it has studied the moves of all the people and it has kept a store. Artificial intelligence, as they call it. This artificial intelligence is much more than our intelligence. Because we are single person, no? It is difficult for us to compete with this machine beast. That is why there I agree with the elderly people. This Google fellow is coming into your mobile and into your home. He has captured all your roads. Today you cannot go without Google map. I will not be surprised a day when the husband will say, I don't know where my bedroom is, let me put Google map. It is so intrusive, it has come right into your house. Google map. So this online gaming has become a subject of tremendous controversy. Yes, betting is there. Nobody says no. Betting is there. Every game will have a bet. May or may not have. Cricket which is being played, is betting not taking place? It is taking place. In fact, it is so addictive. The other day when I was flying to Delhi, I found a Gujarati person next to me, engaged deeply in something in the mobile phone. Normally, I should have kept my eyes this side. I kept it this side. My mistake. I asked him, what are you doing? Because they have already announced takeoff and Indigo will say you have to put your telephone in shut off. Whatever they announce in Hindi, my Hindi is so good that if I speak Hindi, you people will forget it. So this man was not even stopping, even though a flight is on the runway. I told him, what are you doing? Then he said, no sir, I am placing bets. I am placing bets. If the flight takes off, I cannot do it online. So this online gaming, but you see the law of online gaming. Whether it's online or offline, game of skill is different from game of chance. It will have element of both. It will have element of both. When I go for a rummy game, somebody will bet on me or I will bet on myself. Whether Virat Kohli will score a century in the next test. Virat Kohli will be confident I will have to do. You will place bet, he will play, everybody will place bet on his skill. So this online gaming, if you look at it, what is the law today? Of course, it is pending before the Karnataka. Why I am telling you this is, it was argued by all the stalwarts in the country before the Karnataka High Court. Then after the matter was concluded, almost 2-3 weeks after that, I was arguing this matter on what I told you, 89 4C. That time judge stopped me in the middle and said, something strikes me, this online gaming I want clarification. Can you give? Then I told him, I am bound to give lordships because I am an officer of the court. Then he detailed something to me, and then next 20 minutes I told him what the scheme was. And he said, I am now clear. But of course, judgment is yet to come. We are all awaiting the judgment keenly. But my sense of what is that case actually? What does the department say? Department says the person who does this online gaming should be taxed for the entire value. What does the online gaming portal do? It collects the money, deducts commission, gives it to the person who wins. So 120 rupees paid to me, I will deduct 20 rupees. 100 rupees I will give her. You won the bet. What the portal says is, I will be taxed only on 20 rupees. I say I will pay only tax on 20. Department says, no, you have to pay tax on 120. Whole amount. There was one judgment of the Supreme Court in Skill Lotto where they said valuation can be gross value. They did not apply their mind to this. I'm sorry to say this, but that is the truth. They did not apply their mind to this aspect as to what forms consideration for what supply of service. My supply of service is only as an intermediary or as a platform. I charge a fee, management fee. What is the management I do? I take the money, put it in escrow, give it to her who wins the bet. Now, department emboldened by those words in Skill Lotto raised a demand for 20,000 crores. I am not saying 1 crore, 20,000 crores. Because today we talk in that language only. Income tax may, 10 crore, 20 crore comes demand, we say big. But GST, that's not even, we don't bother. 10 crore, 100 crore also no use. Talk 20,000 crore. Minimum is 100 crores GST. Because we can't see below that. Then only I will get promotion. Everybody who steps into the High Court first day of practice wants to become judge tomorrow. Same way, every officer who raises a show cause notice wants to become member of the board, if not Prime Minister. If not Prime Minister, at least member of the board I should become. 20,000 crores demand issued. All the top lawyers in the country are arguing this matter. The entire issue boils down to only one thing, two things. Is Rummy a game of skill or not? Why? Because in GST law, unlike in the earlier sales tax law, after the Sunrise Associates case which held lottery is an actionable claim, the GST law, actionable claims is included as goods. If you see the definition of goods, actionable claim is included. Includes goods. So you cannot argue it is not goods. But when you go to section 7 and C, there they say, Supply of goods does not include actionable claims other than betting, gambling, lottery. That is 7. Read with Schedule 3. It is goods, but it is not supply. So you have to only prove that if it is a game of skill, if it is a game of chance, it will be betting, gambling, or lottery. It won't come in lottery, betting, or gambling, it will come. If it is a game of skill, it is an actionable claim. It is goods, but it is out of this. Because it is a game of skill. This is all has to be done. And there are a string of decisions starting from RMD Chamarbogwala's case, AR 1957, up to all India, that online gaming federation case of the Karnataka High Court, which was rendered in the context of the regulatory provisions, Police Act amendments. They banned online gaming in Karnataka. Police Act, they made amendments to say online gaming is banned till they take, they comply with so many regulations. That was challenged. So what did the High Court say? They followed several Supreme Court judgments and said a game of skill is different from a game of chance. If it is a game of skill, it is not betting or gambling. So the predominance test will apply. Predominance test means what it is predominantly. Predominantly skill, little bit of chance, it will be game of skill. Predominantly chance, little bit of skill, it will be game of chance. That's all. Even though it is 20,000 crore, the Karnataka High Court has to only decide this much. Assuming, what will be the valuation? Let us assume they come to a conclusion it is a game of chance, let us say. What will be the valuation? In my hands, as an operator of the online game, all that I get is the commission. Because that is the consideration for my supply of services. Please understand, the GST law is driven by contract law. When I use the term consideration, means it is driven by contract law. You have a definition for consideration, no doubt. But it is driven by contract law. That means there should be two people. They should agree to the subject, what is called consensus ad idem. Consensus ad idem means both of us should be in agreement with what is being supplied. Please see BSNL's case, 145 STC, where the Supreme Court details this. So between an operator of an online game and a person who plays rummy, the consensus ad idem is the operator will hold back only his commission. He will not hold back the whole amount. So I told the court, maximum that could be taxed is only 20 rupees, only because the consensus ad idem is only for that. And that is the supply of my services. I don't supply money. Supply of money is outside GST. Neither goods nor services taxes money. It is out of GST. But the consensus ad idem is only for the commission. You can tax the commission or whatever the management fee or whatever they call it. You can't tax anything more than that unless there is a mechanism to tax. You should have a mechanism to tax it. You can have, for example, the government introduces reverse charge mechanism, etc., etc. You have in income tax TCS provisions, TDS provisions, which I find obnoxious because I collect money for the government, and if I don't collect, they will penalize me. I have never heard of this, I say. So most obnoxious provisions that I have ever I'm sorry to say this, most obnoxious. As it is, I'm doing a favor for the government in collecting money without any consideration, and then you will penalize me and also prosecute me. I don't know why nobody has thought on these lines to challenge. TCS and TDS provisions have been always upheld on the ground that it curbs black money, this money, that money. Has it actually curbed anything till date? Nothing. So the online gaming, coming back, GST should have a mechanism where if you want to tax 120 rupees, you should have a mechanism put in place. That mechanism today is absent. Even Rule 31, which the government wants to rely on to tax the total value, doesn't say who should pay it. Because there is no service provider, service receiver relationship in an online gaming. For that reason, I had clarified to the court, though I was not a counsel on those matters, I had clarified to the court that it is impossible to tax the total. Anyway, we'll wait for it and see. Next comes this controversies on vouchers. This voucher controversy is going to probably be one of the bigger ones which will come in future. How can vouchers be subjected to? What is a voucher? It is a substitute for your money, as per me. That is how it is defined also in the GST Act. You settle your obligations through a voucher instead of settling your obligations through money. That's all. When you issue a voucher, you cannot tax it. You can only tax the supply which is underlying in that voucher. You can't tax the voucher itself. This is a fundamental error that is being committed by most of the authorities across India. They are taxing the voucher. Voucher will say you are entitled to take certain goods free of cost. By surrendering the voucher, not free of cost, by surrendering the voucher. The underlying goods or services in that voucher will be subjected to tax. Voucher per se cannot be subjected to tax. So those aspects of the law will have to get clarified, because there is a judgment of the Karnataka High Court announced very recently, premier sales, where they said vouchers cannot be taxed. They're right. But in the context of that case, I am not sure whether the conclusion is right, because there the person printed the voucher and supplied to somebody else. That is different than actually usage of the voucher. That aspect probably the High Court did not look into. As an example, I will print the voucher and give it to madam. Madam will give those vouchers to a customer for usage. As far as the transaction between me and her is concerned, there is a supply. There is a supply. Not of vouchers, but supply of my job that I do. That aspect probably was not considered in premier sales corporation's case by the Karnataka High Court, when they held it's not taxable. But the principle they laid down is correct. You cannot tax vouchers. You have to tax only the underlying supply. That was correctly decided. Input tax credit. This is one area where I have found all the governments successively torturing the assessees. Some rules, some legislative provisions introduced to restrict this input tax credit. Whenever revenue falls a little short, they will bring one measure to block this input tax credit. Favorite thing, pastime of the government, at least not in the last 1 or 2 years, I am saying of the So many governments, the favorite pastime was, come budget time, block input tax credit. Why? So that this year will show high revenue. Next year, let us see. Some other government, what is there? This input tax credit, unfortunately, our courts also have held that it is a concession by the legislature. It is not. You please tell me, can you operate a GST system, value added tax, without input tax credit? Can you operate it? It is not possible. That is why the European Court of Justice always says input tax credit is an essential component of value added tax. But our courts in India say it is a concession by the legislature. Huh? It is an absolute right, in my opinion. It's an absolute right, not even a right. Otherwise, the value-added tax system will collapse. Your objective of the Constitution amendment, please see that bill. What was the objective you introduced to the GST? The objective you introduced was to avoid cascading effect of taxes. What do you mean by cascading effect of taxes? To allow input tax credit. So it is not a legislative concession, it is a legislative necessity. And our courts have forgotten it. They are viewing it as some largesse given by government to you. Here, take as a gift. No. You can't run the value-added tax system without this input tax credit. If you realize this, the earlier Eicher Motors case was this only, because the judge understood what is input tax credit. He said it is what is input tax credit? What tax you pay, I take as credit. In what way the government is losing? What he pays as tax, I take as credit. In what way are you losing this? Nothing is lost. So the Eicher Motors first case, the Supreme Court understood it correctly and said it is nothing but advance payment of tax which is taken as credit in your hands. That is the correct law. The subsequent developments saying that it is a legislative concession, etc., I believe is not correct law. So somewhere along the line, some High Court and Supreme Court should revisit this. My fervent prayer is this: please revisit input tax credit as a scheme. If you don't want input tax credit, get rid of GST. If you want input tax credit, then please allow the citizens to take it. Don't put artificial curbs every time, every now and then. I can't understand a legislature which says food and beverages served to employees, input tax credit cannot be taken. I have never heard of this. You are saying you are running a welfare government. Welfare. Whose welfare? I can't understand how you can deny input tax credit to a company which gives food and beverages to its employees. I am not able to understand this. And say personal consumption of employees, we will deny the credit. It is not a personal consumption of employees. It is a welfare. It is a measure taken to retain the employees. Let me tell you this. Competitor companies are giving lunch. Naturally, I will go to the competitor company. Why I should work with you? You are not even giving lunch, not even water you are giving. You are like Indigo flight.
It's a business purpose.
Yes. To retain my employees, I am giving them this. And another, another line of thought by some high courts, welfare measure. So what is wrong in a welfare measure? Is it not a business expenditure? Is welfare measure not a legitimate business expenditure? We have to look at it differently, input tax credit. Today you are saying these latest budget amendments, you introduce FA in 17 bracket 5, say corporate social responsibility expenditure, you will not take input tax credit. How is that possible? How can you do this? Huh? I can't think of the extent to which you can be stupid. Stupidity is there in each human being. It's only the extent which upsets you. CSR, you want on one hand, you please spend, you should be corporately responsible, you should take care of old, young, everyone. You say all that. On the other hand, you say, I will not give input tax credit, I will not allow this expenditure, I will say this is welfare, this is not for business, 37 will not be given, Income Tax Act, 17.5 I will not give you the credit. What is it as a government you are doing? I mean, I am doing your job. What is it as a government you should do? I think our lawmakers should think on these lines. And 17.5 FA has to be struck down. Why it has to be struck down is because parallel provisions, you say, food and beverages, etc., if it is mandated by law, credit can be taken. If you are obliged to give it under any law, if it is obligatory, credit can be taken, you say, in that clause. In this clause, CSR is mandated by Companies Act, you say you can't take credit. So there is some inherent lacuna in the way the government views input tax credit. You see this mismatch. How much of litigation in mismatch? First you take transitional credit. We had to fight this matter up to Supreme Court. How many batch of matters were there when I appeared there? We were how many in that batch? Hundreds. Transitional credit. After all, what is it? Whatever credit you had in the sales tax, I took it over here. That also they had to fight and go to Supreme Court. I can't believe why this is happening. Transitional credit is one. Second, mismatch. I purchase from you. You don't upload the documents. How I can be held responsible? Unless I am in, some understanding with you. If it is not there, how can I be held responsible for this? You don't pay tax. I pay you the money, you don't pay tax. How I can be held responsible? There is something called doctrine of impossibility. Doctrine of impossibility has to be invoked in all these cases to say it is impossible for me to know whether you will pay tax or you will not pay tax, whether you will upload or not upload. Of course, some assessees something in this fake invoicing, you will have this. But 5 years back in Gujarat, when I said fake invoicing, you cannot demand the tax. Some people in the crowd said, how is it possible? I said, no, it is not possible to demand the tax because you have paid the tax already. Now they have issued circular. Four years back when I said input deduction for land value has to be given on actuals, not on 1/3. What happened? Gujarat High Court has same view. You can't restrict it to 1/3. It has to be full value of land. So therefore, input tax credit, we require a lot, there are a lot of controversies which are going to come. Eligibility, mismatch, system problems, blocking of ledgers. Fortunately, blocking of ledgers, the extent to which they used to block earlier has come down now. Because they are collecting 1,50,000 crore per month. 1,50,000 becomes 1,40,000. Please warn your assessees, blocking will go up. Be clear. If I don't get 1,50,000 as threshold, blocking. I block the credit to push it to 1,50,000. Be ready for this. If there is recession in the world and it falls below 1,50,000, you are in trouble, my dears. More and more. I mean, why you should be unhappy? You will have more cases. Then we come to another interesting issue. Can you tax works contract? Can GST have a works contract tax? I have filed a petition in the Karnataka High Court challenging the levy of works contract under GST. It was heard at length, admitted and stay given to all the further proceedings. Supply of, this is what I said, this is what I told the Karnataka High Court. This is exactly the same illustration I gave. Supply of goods or services or both, what does it mean? What does it mean? Now let us assume that I am installing a TV in my home. I come to madam, she supplies me a TV, she sends her person to install. This is supply of goods or services or both. Because there is a purchase of TV set and purchase of installation services. That is why that both allows you to tax composite supply. Both allows you to tax composite supply. But then I told the judges, look at this High Court building. Look at this. You have supply of material, you have supply of labor. Which is predominant? Tell me. In a building, which is predominant? Is it supply of cement or steel, or is it supply of masonry services? Can you identify what is principal supply? Can you identify what is accessory supply? You cannot. And therefore, works contract cannot come in GST at all. Fortunately, I had a bench which was very strong in constitutional matters. They understood what I was telling and stayed further proceedings, saying this is a substantial question of law. It has to be heard at length. So in my humble view, works contract is an indivisible contract. That is why it is called, there is a difference between composite contract and indivisible contract. Composite contract, I can split it into principal supply and accessory supply. In an indivisible contract, I cannot split. I do not know what is principal, what is accessory. So question of bringing that to tax does not arise. Was my argument, which was prima facie accepted by the, I am not saying it will be accepted everywhere. Prima facie, the court felt that it has to be accepted because of the substantial question of law which was involved. So that is a very interesting recent controversy. I argued it about 4 or 5 months back, which we will have to, I will have to re-argue the whole thing again when it comes up for final hearing, but it's a substantial controversy which is there. Then we come to the famous taxation of associations. You know Calcutta Club's case. I had the good fortune of arguing along with the other seniors before a very learned 3-member bench for 3 days. I recount that Tuesday morning 10:45, Justice Rohinton Nariman said, start your arguments. Departmental counsel was not there. He has a departmental appeal. So he said, doesn't matter, read the judgment. So we read the judgment faithfully to him for about half an hour. Then the departmental counsel came and then he said, stop, now you continue reading the judgment to the other side. What was the ratio of that judgment? I don't know how many people have understood it or not. The ratio of that judgment was simply this. If I am an agent for a principle, I do what the principal wants me to do. Or what he cannot do, he will want me to do. I represent him. Therefore, the question of bringing it to tax doesn't arise. An association of members and members cannot be two different entities. One is a principal, one is an agent. That was the ratio of that judgment. And therefore, he said, when you say consideration, in the Constitution 366(29)(a) and all the other clauses, when you say consideration, it means two people should be there. Association and members are principal and agent. That was the true ratio of that judgment. Now, in order to get over that, they introduced subclass AA in section 7(1), small aa, to say activities or transactions between clubs and members will be subjected to tax. What they said was activities or supplies inter se between. That means what they mean. If a member supplies to the club or the club supplies to the member, then tax will come. But if the association is only sharing the expenses, there is no tax. There is no service by the members to the association. You take a resident welfare association like your flats. Security expenses. Security is not given to the association. Let us be clear. Security is given to the members. Association doesn't require any security. Members require security today. So the cost, the service is rendered directly by the security agency to the members, routed through the association. Association does not give security services to members. Please understand. This also you should keep in mind. Association doesn't render any security services to its members. It only arranges for security. Therefore, in my humble view, even after the amendment, Calcutta Club's case will continue to apply. Insofar as it pertains to expenses which are being met by one and settled by the other. Where there is a supply between members and the association, yes, you can bring that to tax. That is what the amendment says. When there is no supply at all, there cannot be any tax. Please. So this is my humble view. Next very big controversy which is happening, and this is going to happen throughout the country. It will continue to happen even more. Be ready for more and more action. Taking the 26AS, issuing notice. Simply take 26AS. Your gross receipts is 5 crore. 5 crore. You have shown in 3B 1 crore. 4 crore bring to tax. Across the country this is happening. Just take the 26AS, issue notice. You have in income tax on the one hand scheme of senseless assessment. What you are calling faceless. Why? Because see, your face only has all the sense organs. Most of them at least. So I just replaced face with sense, that's all. Nothing I did. Like that, you see, faceless assessment, so many matters in the High Court, you will not believe. My turnover is 4 crore. My profit is 40 lakhs. Adjustments on account of faceless assessment, 123 crores. How? How? You have not explained the credit. What was that credit of 5 crore? Transferred from one bank to another bank. How you can? SBI I hold bank account. ICICI Bank I hold bank account. I transfer this. Faceless assessment taxes me. Taxes me. He will not look into record also. Same way, 26 years vis-a-vis 3B. So all these matters, when I argued it before the High Court, we got stay. I said only one thing, only one ground I took. I said, your jurisdiction under the GST law is to assess as per my GST return. Are you vested with the jurisdiction to assess as per income tax to 26 years? That's all. You can ask me for explanation. You cannot simply say difference 4 crore you pay tax. I will have interest from bank deposits. For example, I will, as an individual or as even as a company, I may have interest on bank deposits. Can you bring it to tax under GST? You can't do that. So these notices, of course, Madras High Court has already given a favorable decision saying you cannot automatically take 26 years and put it in 3B and tax them. Very good, very good decision. I'll give you the name of the judge, Dr. Anita Suman's judgment. Please make a search for Dr. Anita Suman's judgment, you will find that beautiful judgment. Where she says between these two, this is in respect of a building contracts, where she specifically says, in the accounting standards, you may go as per completion method or you may go as per stages. In GST, you don't go by those standards. You only go by receipts. So you cannot apply these two, take this and apply it automatically here and say it is taxable. Beautiful judgment. Madras High Court. Please use this here also. Not that your authorities will understand, the High Courts will understand. No authority is going to understand or allow you to understand also. But High Courts will follow. Because it's a question of jurisdiction. It's a question of jurisdiction. You cannot bring me to tax on an item which is not taxable at all. That is the principle that is being laid out in this 26As and other judgments which are there. I also find some funny notices have started to come. Intercorporate guarantee. Holding company gives guarantee for the loans taken by the subsidiary company. So what the department says, I don't know if you are facing this in Gujarat. Are you facing it? Not yet. Somebody is nodding head already, so he is facing it, I think. What they say, I will tell you what they say and then you can laugh afterwards. Or even before. All they say is, this guarantee was given by the holding company to subsidiary company Normally, government guarantees are given and commission paid is 1 or 2%. Therefore, holding to subsidiary company, we will impute that value as 2% and pay tax on it. This is the notice issued to assessees. Whoever has holding in subsidiary companies, be ready for this kind of notices. Because if you see in Gujarat, in income tax sphere, lot of judgments are there which say it is shareholder activity. Giving corporate guarantee is my own business. Holding company, why it gives for the subsidiary? To protect its subsidiary. There is no supply. They are only giving a guarantee commission. So this one aspect. Second aspect is, holding company has invested in the subsidiary company. Had they not invested, they would have taken from banks loan. So to that extent, the share capital will be subjected to tax. Have you heard of this? I have heard of it. Please be ready. This is also coming now slowly. In South it has started. It will spread. Corona will spread. Because my intelligence will be your intelligence. Today will be your intelligence, tomorrow. Bringing to tax, shareholder who invests in another company as consideration between invoking schedule 1. Can you believe it? You are finding it hard to believe, I think, but it is there. Invoking schedule 1, they have issued notices. This is the next stage of GST litigation. This is why I said, talking about past is, you know about it. Talking the future is more important and much more, enlightening for us, because we know how the department is going to move now. What they are going to do next. What are the future steps and what are the future types of litigation that they are trying to raise. Now, as far as intercorporate guarantees are concerned, I had an occasion to argue one of the matters before the Kerala High Court, where I got a stay, especially for NBFCs. NBFCs, you see, what they said was this: a shareholder and director of a company stood guarantee. Stood guarantee for the company which took a bank loan. They said in the normal course 1 or 2% would have been paid by any government company. Therefore, the director who has supplied these services is liable to pay that 1 or 2% he should have received. GST on that. Have you understood this case? If you have not understood, it's very difficult, I know. I had to explain this to the judge. He said, first time he said, what kind of transaction is this? I said, this is an imputed transaction. I am a director in a company. I stand guarantee for the company, based on which banks give loan to the company. Department says, in the normal course, I would have charged a guarantee commission to the company, 1 or 2% as the case may be. On the 2%, 18% is payable as GST. What the department did not look into was, we dug out on circular, not department circular, we dug out an RBI circular which says prohibits payment of commission to directors. Saying directors cannot make this as an alternate source of income. Prohibits. We showed the Kerala High Court, see. When they saw, they said, how can you do this? And further proceedings were stayed, instantly stayed. Reason being, Only if there is a supply of service can there be a tax. 1. 2. Director and the company may not be related people. Even under section 15, they need not always be related persons. See, if the director controls 2 companies, then the relation will come. Standalone director may not be a related person to the company or for that matter anything at all because he has no control. So related person fiction cannot be invoked into all the relationships. It can be invoked into only those relationships where section 15 talks about it. So on that ground, the Kerala High Court felt it fit to stay further proceedings. Is there any question answer session, or should I open it up for any question answer, or I continue, or what do I do? Please have some, if I continue it will be another 1 hour. Be ready for it. I will take some questions and then I will continue, if you want continue. Any questions you can ask me. Because there is 5-10 minutes question answers, please. Otherwise, my coming all the way will be of no use to you because I have at least one topic I will take before I get into your question answers. One issue, which is
Somebody.
Sir,
yes.
sir, section 16(4).
Limitation. Please sit down. Section 16(4), all those challenges are pending. Section 16(4) says you should take the credit before a particular time limit. That normally happens to be when you file your September returns or annual returns, which is now November, I think, whichever is earlier. So for the year 22-23, I should have taken the credit before I file my September returns or annual return for 22-23. Is this the first question I ask? Where should I take the credit? Is it credit in the books or credit in the return? That is the question. In my view, it's credit in the books. If I have taken the credit in the books but not reflected it in my electronic credit ledger, as the case may be, 16(4) will not operate. In other words, you can take the credit anytime, my dear, that's what I am saying. I have taken it in books already, I have not reflected it in my returns, that's all. I can take it anytime. If I have not taken it in my books at all, only then 16(4) will operate. Even then, 16(4) is subject to 16(2). Because 16(2) starts off with notwithstanding clause. Therefore, 16(2) is a substantive provision. And please understand, this is what when I got a stay, I argued this matter. I said, law of limitation is procedural in nature. It is a handmaid of justice, not its mistress. This is what Supreme Court says. Arya Chamber of Commerce, 26 volume of ELT, you just see that one. Arya Chamber of Commerce, what they say? It is the handmaid of justice, not its mistress. Mistress means you have to take directions. Whether you take from wife or not, mistress, you have to take direction. But that is not the case with this. So, to answer your question, if it is taken in the books, no limitation. If it is not taken, you have to plead a 16(2) override 16(4). Yes, sir.
Any taxation issues or disputes arise due to the understanding or misunderstanding regarding the Contract Act or anything else?
See, most of the, meaning what, can you give an illustration?
Like any kind of consideration, like any kind of agencies, and any kind of dispute is arise with which you talk, dispute, which is understanding dependency of the contract, basically on the dependency of the proper, not understanding on the Contract Act, maybe arise this kind of issues and disputes regarding the tax collection or evasion.
I have still not got your question clearly. Can you just tell me an illustration, if you don't mind? Please tell me an illustration.
Yes. Actually, any tax collections, yeah, any taxation related like income tax or GST, any kind of issues arise due to the understanding of the actual contract act, dependency on the authority, dependency on the any taxpayer. Maybe dispute is main dependency on the actually understanding of the proper contract
Okay.
act.
See, what happens is when contractual relationship, if you have a contract and the department understands in some way, you may understand in some other way. This happens in all cases. All cases of valuation will be this only. Every case of valuation will be this. They will say something is includable, you will say something is not includable because of contractual clauses. In those cases, it is better to go through the appeal route rather than the writ route. Unless you find there is a gross error committed by the authority, in which case you can go in writ court. But remedy is there. You can go in first appeal, second appeal, or in writ as the case may be. There is no problem with that. One issue which I thought I will take, which will be of some interest to you, on which also notices have come. Input tax credit. I'll just finish this, sir. You can ask me. Please sit down and ask me, sir. There's no need. Only I have to stand and answer. Let us assume that you want your TV sets to sell more, and therefore you introduce gold scheme. Every TV set of 50 inches and more, you give one gold coin. Incentive. The issue is whether that gold coin which you purchased and you gave, is it hit by the clause, gift? Input tax credit which is lost, stolen, destroyed, etc., also says disposed of by way of gift. My understanding is there is no free meal. That is not a disposal of an input by way of free supply. It is simply an incentive given so that your TV will go out of your stock. Otherwise, it's not selling. Now you want to get rid of it. So my humble understanding is that it is, you can take credit on that and you need not reverse on it. Yes, sir. Please now.
Sir, there is a big question arises in Gujarat. Leasehold land. Just GIDC, generally GIDC is giving land to his member as on lease, 99 years leasehold.
Yes.
They will give for 5 crore rupees
Just
on lease.
tell me only the question. I am fully aware of this
नहीं,
transaction.
just GIDC लैंड जो 99 इयर्स की लैंड लीज पे दे रहे हैं, उसमें क्या हो रहा है, एक्चुअली वो सेल नहीं कर रहे हैं, वो गिविंग लैंड on lease for 99 years of utilization.
Ask me only the question. I am fully aware of this.
Just GIDC has given exemption, but then after the person who has taken leasehold land, he has transferred to another person for 99 years further, then they are levying tax on this amount. It is right when. Thanks.
So your question is
Second
the
person.
subsequent transactions,
Subsequent
whether there is
transaction,
subject to. My humble view. This is only my view. Don't. You can quote me on it also. No issues. Because I can express my view freely. While welcoming Mr. Sridharan, senior advocate.
Please give sir a very big round of applause.
I can continue to have my views.
Yes, please, sir.
In my view, sir, please come to the forefront. Sir, please. You are always been in the forefront. Please come here.
Sir, we welcome you to the 2-day tax conclave. So please have a seat,
please.
sir.
It's our honor to speak
Yes,
when
absolutely.
a person of his stature is here. So in my humble view, any long-term lease of land, as the very nature of the transaction says, cannot be a subject matter of this, the levy itself. There is one decision in 1979 AIR, I remember, where the Supreme Court says any interest in immovable property is immovable property. It's a mining case where they say this. Any interest in immovable property becomes immovable property. You look even at the definition of immovable property under the General Clauses Act. Even your developmental rights are immovable property. They are not part and parcel of movable property at all. So in my view, bringing it to tax itself is difficult. So question you transfer, sub-transfer it or sublease it as they say. Sublease it as they say. Cannot, in my view, there are contrary views also, in my view cannot be brought to tax. Only problem is I highlighted it. There is an IBC decision, Noida's case, where they say you will be operational creditor. Be careful about that. Because you want to recover, you have to stand in line with operational creditors, not with the financial creditors. Any further questions, sir? Yes, sir.
So we'll be having this as our last question. Please go ahead.
We had paid this tax. We have told him to pay the tax. As the number was cancelled of the cancelled dealer. Okay, so we had paid via DRC 03, via interest. Okay, now the same dealer has re-registered his number and paid the taxes. Can we reclaim this credit?
In my view, you should please see the judgment in Wipro Limited's case, where they say these are all matters of procedure and cancellation, recancellation, etc. has to be understood as procedural provisions and should not override the substantive benefits that are there in the GST law. You should be able to do it. Those are also procedural provisions, in my view. Those are also procedural provisions, but you will, one thing, you lend your name to a very famous case in future. Probably Mr. Sridharan can be engaged. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause for Sir. Sir, I would definitely like to mention that the heaven for defaulters, the useless assessments, the Indigo flight and the extent of stupidity will be retained by us for very long. And sir, we heartily thank you for preparing us for the soon to spread corona. I'm sure one and all have been benefited by this mention. It's now time to felicitate the dignitaries on the dais by the hands of V. Raghuraman sir. Sir, I request you to present a memento to Shivam Bhausar sir. No, sir, please. Yes. Followed by Advocate Jignesh Bhagat. Advocate Ramesh Kachrani. Advocate Shirish Visnagri. Advocate Tejas Shah. C.A. Sanjay Patel. Advocate Harnish Mode. and Hetal Shah, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Here we come to the end of the 5th technical session of the Tax Conclave 2023, and I request all the dignitaries to please come forward for a group photograph. Thank